Coming up on Action News at 6, a story you'll only see on 2. We uncover details about fleet finance. What we found could affect thousands of Georgia homeowners.
And the proposed agreement that could affect thousands of Fleet Finance Company customers here in Georgia. Fleet has been the target of a state investigation and a number of class action lawsuits charging that the company has been a predatory lender.
Consumer reporter Patrick Crosby is here with a report you'll only see on 2.
In fact, Monica, for months we have told you how Fleet Finance has used middlemen and smaller mortgage companies to bring in millions in dollars in business, often in poor and minority areas. There are multiple class action suits against Fleet by some of its customers, and we first told you of a state investigation, and only on 2 new information involving a possible state settlement with Fleet. This is a widespread agreement that affects thousands of Georgia Fleet homeowners. Vivian and Greggory Johnson are Fleet's second mortgage holders. Their 10-year-old loan should be paid off now in the next coming months, but their roughly $10,000 loan was at close to 30% interest, and they had to pay 19 so-called points. Mixed in with the loan interest and late payments, the financing cost them over $30,000, and 10 years later, they still owe the original $10,000.
As far as our situation, the balance owed should be wiped out. We shouldn't have to pay anybody anything. It doesn't matter if they reduce the percentage rate to 0. We still got a balance that we don't owe.
For months, the state of Georgia has been digging into Fleet loans and deals like the Johnsons, mainly poor and minority consumers. We have learned of possible settlement items. Fleet homeowners foreclosed before January 91 may not get restitution per se. They would at least get $170 apiece and agree to release Fleet from any other state legal liability. There could be mass rollbacks on a sliding scale with those customers over 21% interest or 18% and over 10 points. Points would roll back to 10 points. Interest would roll back to the current consumer finance rates, which are now about 14%. State sources say a high percentage of Fleet customers would get much more than the Fair Business Practices Act currently allows. Because the Johnsons aren't sure what they'd get under the state agreement, they want to stay in court against Fleet in a class action.
I sympathize with anybody who has dealt with Fleet Finance over the years because they are really something else. It's just been by the grace of God that we still own our home.
Action News has also learned in a proposed state settlement, Fleet would have to complete home improvements that were often the basis for a consumer getting a second mortgage and having the house end up with Fleet. Some consumers claim that doesn't address the inflated prices they had to pay for home improvements, which they must still pay with interest. State sources say there will be a loan-established fund of $70 million with down payment assistance for Fleet Finance customers and below bank rates. That could be a big relief from what some claim have been questionable collecting techniques over a period of years.
Visiting their homes, calling home and work every day, sending out letters, taking pictures of their property.
Why?
I think that was just a little scare tactic or strategy that they used.
Kevin Barbie is a former Fleet bill collector who has filed an affidavit against Fleet in a class action suit. The company says he is a disgruntled employee and his word should be taken that way.
To take someone's loan and adjust it the way you needed it to be adjusted to make the books look good, that was a huge discomfort with me.
Kevin Barbie claims he, too, is a Fleet mortgage holder and wants some sort of financial relief from the state agreement. We will have more on our interview with Kevin Barbie tomorrow and more on Fleet's response to the alleged collection tactics. Now, Fleet Finance told us late this afternoon they couldn't comment on any major agreement with the state, nor would state officials, and nothing has really been formally announced. But some consumers and sources we've talked to familiar with it claim it may not be much of a deal, and the state says it's a great deal. In fact, better than they could have gotten under the statutes. You can only get $5,000 per consumer. They say they've gotten more than that. So, Donna, Monica, it is not technically official, but we are now getting more word on what will be a big, big agreement both in the nationwide scope and in Georgia with Fleet Finance.
All right. You'll keep us posted. Thank you, Patrick.